And we're live.
Yay.
Wow. And welcome back to the Op Show, our live, where we bring you the trials and tribulations, the automations and collaborations from the world of workflows and the greater developer experience. I'm your host, Tristan Pollock, as always with CTO.ai co-founder Kyle Campbell. And we're in our best show yet, in our first live show, we have Mayuko, iOS software engineer, the host of the If Else podcast, and a YouTuber with 350,000 subscribers who vlogs about her developer journey, as well as you have Muko's Cafe on Twitch, which
I
I've
do.
attended multiple times, where it's a virtual co-working experience. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on here for our first live show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be the first live show on Twitch, a place where I'm very familiar and I stream every single day. So thanks for the intro. Excited to be here with you two.
Yeah, this is great.
So-
It's been so long since we've connected, since the podcast, and you've been just out there racking up the wins. So it's good to. I think we're gonna get like a decent little catch up today, as well as a first for the Op Show with your support once again. Thank you so much.
Totally. I'm excited. Yeah, it's definitely been a minute, so I'm excited to catch up as well.
Why don't Mayuko kick us off with telling us a little bit about your code story, how you got into code, and how did you start in code, and then how did you end up with 350,000 subscribers on YouTube? Draw the line for us.
Okay, happy to. So I started coding. I would say the beginning of my code journey really started in college. I grew up with the generation that was on Zanga and Neopets and MySpace. So all of the kind of early social media platforms where you could edit your templates and stuff. And so really that's probably the first place I ever coded, copy pasting CSS templates and changing backgrounds and making things move back and forth on my Zanga page. But yeah, I think I never really considered like this was coding or really considered a career in software engineering until I got to college. I went to UC San Diego, and I didn't know that I wanted to code when I first joined. I wanted to be like a chemistry major or a neuroscience major. And then I took an intro class in both, and I was like, this is so freaking hard. And so I was like, nope, not going to do that for another 4 years. I kind of fell into computer science yeah, that's the word. My floor mate at the time when I was living in the dorms as a freshman was like, hey, why don't you try computer science? I took an intro to logic course, which is part of the philosophy department. And I was like, logic is cool. I don't have to memorize anything. It's not all these abstract physics concepts that I don't understand, like quantum mechanics. It's like there's a set of instructions, and it made a lot of sense to me. So that's kind of where I started. I took like CSE 8A, which was like the introduction to Java class at my school. I was like, this is not nearly as bad as intro to neuroscience or intro to chemistry. So I kind of just kept going, really. And so then I eventually earned my computer science degree, my bachelor's in computer science from UCSD. And then professional journey wise, I kind of fell into iOS development as well. My first role was a iOS developer at Intuit, straight out of college. I was part of this really cool thing that they had called the Rotational Development Program, which allowed me to kind of explore different roles, explore different teams, organizations within the company over a span of 2 years. But like my first rotation, I was supposed to have 3, and my first one, I was like, well, I love what I'm doing, so I kind of want to keep doing it. So that's how I kind of that's how I fell into iOS development. And then I worked on TurboTax for a year at Intuit,
Okay.
and then I worked at QuickBooks for 6 months, and then I left and worked at Patreon, a startup in San Francisco that helps creators get paid for 2.5 years. And then right after that, which was my most recent role, I was at Netflix working as an iOS UI engineer on their app. So the iPad, iPhone app, if you've ever used the Netflix app, that was my team. Yeah, I started my YouTube channel while I was at Patreon. That was about 3 years ago. I had always really loved YouTube. Like I watched when I was in high school was when YouTube really started like getting a lot of traction. There was a lot of Asian American creators on the platform that I really looked up to. And so I think it's fair to say that I'd wanted to be a YouTuber for like 10 years before I even started my channel. But I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna make. Like, I can't vlog. I don't have like this talent to show to the world. Like, what am I gonna do? And it was right around that time when I was at Patreon when I really wanted to find a way to have a broader impact on kind of the industry and just like do more than what I was doing at work. Specifically around conversations in diversity and inclusion and equity and stuff. And so it kind of just like clicked after I had gone to this conference for video creators about how to start a YouTube channel. So I made my video, A Day in the Life of a Software Engineer, which now has almost 5 million views, which is absolutely wild. Algorithm picked it up. That's kind of where a lot of my channel had grown. And I just kind of kept going. It was really fun. There's a lot of things in content creation that I think are very unique to content creation and like it's just very fun to do. So I've kept going with that. And then this year I quit my job at Netflix and decided to go full-time content creation because I felt like that was where I wanted to go next and really like see what would happen if I put all of my effort into that. So yeah, now I'm at 350K subscribers, which I think I just passed that like pretty recently, 350. So I'm very proud of that. And yeah, I've just been making content about tech, career, and lifestyle stuff. So I feel very fortunate to have been in this journey, and it's been a wild and fun ride.
Such a good story. And like as you shift gears into the full-time content creation stuff, that's one of the things that got me really excited about what you're doing. Obviously, we connected like last year, the year before. I think you were still at Patreon. We did the If Else podcast where there was a lot of awesome alignment. You obviously did all the hard work. We just tried to be supportive. But to see you then shift gears into Netflix and then go from Netflix to running your own thing, it's huge. You're living the dream over there. One of the questions I had, I'd love to get this out right out of the gate. How much does it feel like a job now versus, the sort of the issue? Yeah, right. So the challenge between creating content that you're passionate about versus content that the algorithm picks up that furthers the success of the channel. How do you find that balance? That's one of the things I'm really curious about.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance to manage. I know that some people are like, you don't work if you love, what is it? You don't work a day in your life if you love what you do kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I think there's, everybody sees their job and their work and get fulfillment from their work in different ways. For me personally, I'm like, this is still work. Like it still feels like work in a lot of ways.
Maybe more work.
Yeah, and so, like honestly, I'm like, I do think I work harder now than I did as a software engineer because I run the whole show. I'm self-employed. I'm a small business owner of one. And so there's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn that I had never been exposed to before. But I think it's still work, but the work that I do is really interesting. I think I'm exposed to different worlds that I'd never been exposed to or had been afraid of kind of going after really. Like all of content creation, I learned a lot of this stuff just through other people and YouTube channels of like how to edit good content. Honestly, just watching a ton of YouTube videos and being like, how do I do that edit and stuff like that. So I think, it's really interesting. I think the work that I do now heavily aligns with who I am and what my values, because the product kind of is me. And the stuff that I create. So it's like whatever comes out of my brain is what gets created into a video, and that is the stuff. And so there's a lot of kind of like ironies, I guess, around content creation that I'm discovering that I'm learning about. Like things like just because you put like a lot of work in a video doesn't mean that it's going to be a hit.
Right.
Just because you did all of your research or something, or just because that's what other people are making doesn't mean that it's going to be a hit. In return, some of like my most successful, also funnest videos to make were the ones that I was like, I just really want to talk about this right now. And I think it'd be really fun to make it. So let's just do it. I don't even care how it performs. And then like, boom, 100K views. And I'm just like, this makes zero sense. So I'm surprised every day. And it's definitely a balance to manage really, to have it be work and then also not work at the same time.
Yeah. Share a little bit more about the content that's brought you here and how your content's evolving. I think one of the things I was really excited about when we started talking about the podcast is we found a real overlap of interests around helping the next generation of software developers. Obviously, you've taken that to the next level. Love to just share with people, from our audience who maybe are less familiar, what that content structure's looked like, and then how's it evolving now that you're sort of out on your own and evolving the product, as you said.
Totally. Yeah. So I think when I first started YouTube, I knew that what I wanted to do was just to like get my story out there and just like show that like someone like me who looks like me, who identifies like me, could be in Silicon Valley and working as a software engineer and be what some might call successful, like that was just my goal. And then I think a year into working on my content, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, I don't know what kind of content to create. I have no idea what to make. And because I was working at Patreon at the time, I was really fortunate to have sat down with Jack Conte, who's the CEO of Patreon. He's run many YouTube channels. He's a part of Pomplamoose with his wife, his band. And so I sat down with him and he kind of helped me to clarify like what it is that I was doing on YouTube. And so the first kind of mission statement that I came up with was to help people into the industry who otherwise would, who are maybe identify as underrepresented minorities, for instance. And so that's kind of like definitely evolved over time. I think the core of it is still right. I think recently I've been thinking about it in more of terms of like, how can I help people navigate the industry in a way that's authentic to them? Mm-hmm. Actually, interestingly enough, I think I got that phrase from the writer for If Else. He kind of like coined that and I was like, that is what I'm doing. Yeah, I love that.
That's cool.
So yeah, I think it's always been a blend of tech content and career content and lifestyle. I think those three things have to live together. I never wanted my channel to be purely tech content or purely lifestyle or purely career, because I had seen channels like that before and I just didn't really like enjoy watching them per se. Like I like channels that are both a little bit educational, inspirational, motivational, relatable, and just entertaining to watch. And so I think the blend of those three are the things that's just kind of been a common theme. And really just how that's evolved, I think I've been able to kind of like, ever since I became a full-time content creator, I've been able to like put the pedal to the metal on all three and really experiment with like, okay, what kinds of content have I not had the time for before that I can make now? So I think like really after doing If Else and really kind of like starting to think about technical content, I started creating a super tiny series called Tech in 2, where I was going to explain different technologies in under 2 minutes, which was like the first time that I had really interfaced with like technical content on YouTube. I started vlogging regularly. So now I have a vlog series called This Is My Life Vlogs. I have 6 of those now. I've been continuing on the career stuff. And yeah, I think a lot of it is just like, how can I like create spaces where people feel like they can succeed in tech, that they can belong in tech? How can I equip people to have realistic expectations to go into technology? I think it's still a lot of soul searching, and I think like my content strategy changes probably monthly. But yeah, it's definitely evolved over time in the last 3 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really interested, as a attendee at your virtual co-working space.
Whoa! Virtual co-working space. Let's unpack that. I heard about this Code with Friends event that you were doing, but virtual co-working space. Let's unpack that. Pause a second.
Okay. Yeah, I love that was part of my intro now too.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that is something that I love to do. So in March, kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone was working from home, I was like, it would be cool if, and I was also kind of starting to really ramp up on content creation stuff. And I was like, I don't work with anybody around me anymore except for my husband.
Yeah.
And I would like to have some coworkers. And so I started what we now call Muko's Cafe. We're on my Twitch channel Monday through Friday, alternating days of afternoon streams, morning streams, Pacific time. We co-work and co-study and chill together. So the way that we do it now is we have Pomodoro timers to structure between focus time and social time. I play like chill hop lo-fi music the whole time. People can request songs. It's kind of like a co-listening thing. It really does kind of feel like you coming to a cafe and everybody else is like working around you and you're all listening to the same music that the cafe owner has put on, me, and we just like have a fun chill time. And it's really helped me a lot, honestly. Like I wanted to create the space both for other people but also selfishly for myself to have a place to go to where I can like feel like I have coworkers. And I've been doing that, I guess, for like 6 months now. We have like a bunch of regulars who come in. We have a bunch of new people who come in as well. And it's seriously been a blast.
I checked your live stream out yesterday and there was a few hundred, 300, 400 people all watching at the same time, and comments were just off the hook flying through. So it's a big cafe.
Yeah. It is. We joke about like one day a dream of mine from like when I was little is to have an actual physical cafe at some point. Cool. And so we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we made a physical cafe and y'all came from around the world, because it's a very global community.
Yeah.
And we also all just like hung out and like coded together. So
post-pandemic goals.
Yeah. It's a very like wholesome part of the internet that I'm very proud to have really been a part of, because I know that like, yes, I host it, but really it's I think it's a testament to the community that has been active and continues to come back and engages with everybody, that has really made this thing very special.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It sounds like there's a bunch of people here from the cafe. The community is here.
I recognize them. Yeah, I see them.
What's up, everybody?
My regulars, what's up?
Tell us a little bit about the Code with Friends as well. I think I just missed it over the summer, and I think you just ran another session or are currently running one.
Yeah, totally. So this is one of the things that I was like, now that I have the time to do what I want to do, what's something that I can do now that I'm full-time content creation? And one of the things that honestly was actually born out of Muko's Cafe, we were like talking on Twitch one day, and my husband Scott was also here, and we were like, what if we had this kind of like Shark Tank kind of hackathon-y thing that happened virtually? Like, wouldn't that be cool? And so my husband and I took that and we were like, let's do something with that. Like, let's make that into a thing. And so we came up with Code with Friends. We had our very first event in May. And so it's a month-long coding event where people from all over the world come together and work on their personal projects together. I think just being a part of like the tech community online, there's a lot of talk about personal projects. Like, I have a hard time finishing them. It's hard to find the motivation. What do I even work on? And I think also hackathons are, all going online and remote and stuff as well. So we were kind of like, okay, now that we have this kind of like community on Twitch and we want to like help people like further their careers and kind of create the supportive community around coding, what could we do? And so we came up with that event. So it's focused on like people working on their personal projects together. It doesn't mean that people really can work on anything they want to. They can work on it with other people. They can work on it themselves. And the first one we did was in May. We had like 200 signups and like 87 submissions at the end of the month. I hosted like Code with Friends themed co-working sessions on my Twitch, so people could like be like, okay, every Friday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, I'm gonna come and join Muko's Cafe and like work on personal projects together. It was honestly a huge success. Like, Scott and I were like, we would be so happy if like 5 people finished their projects, like so happy.
And there was 87.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were like, oh no, this
was
is
there
great.
Demos or what was sort of the crescendo?
Yeah, so the whole kind of vibe of the event is that it's not competitive, it's not a hackathon. I personally don't really enjoy that really competitive atmosphere that can happen in coding events, just because it's heavily stressful. Mm-hmm. And so it was really like if you submit a project, you get a sticker sent by me of the logo of Code with Friends. Last time we had like basically like we called them awards, but they're really superlatives. So we just had like community voting of like most project most likely to help aliens take over the world, and project that's like the chillest and stuff like that.
Cool.
And so it was like it was actually kind of like anticlimactic in that sense, but really it was about highlighting the effort that everybody had put into their projects throughout the month, and seeing the collective effort of that was just super duper cool. So yeah, we're doing another one in October, so it's kicking off on Thursday actually.
Cool.
And this time I have a team of staff to help me plan, because last time it was kind of intense.
Wow.
Just to do it with the two of us. Yeah. We have a new website. We're having check-in groups, which is another kind of tenet of it, of having small groups of people who can hold each other accountable and then also support each other through all of this. We have a Discord server. We also have what we're calling labs. So we've asked a couple of people from the community who are like experts in their areas to help guide like anybody working on a project in their technology. Last time we had like one massive channel where people could just drop in and ask any tech question, and it was kind of like a little bit wild and unorganized. So yeah, this time we have like 2 to 4 guides who can help answer questions in the Discord anytime. So if anybody has any technical issues or needs somebody to debug with, they can come in there. So yeah, it's powering up. We're at V2 right now, and I think it's just going to keep going. We're going to probably do this twice a year, and I'm really excited for it.
I love it. Tristan and I have been talking about a lot of different ideas about how to come back to that if else idea that we sort of had, and a similar direction that you know, watching you were inspired by. We were throwing around ideas like maybe some different training type things where you get different YouTubers and sort of the community of people to give back. We were throwing around ideas around different kinds of hackathons, but you're doing it. It's impressive. It's inspiring. So obviously, like, you're iterating as you go. You're learning, hey, one channel doesn't work, let's break it out into many channels. Hey, I need staff, can't do it all myself. I'd love to just hear a little bit about your workflow around content creation, as well as how it integrates into your typical software development workflow, because you're still coding, right? How's that evolved as you've gone from somebody who is managing sort of their 9 to 5 with content creation on the side to now full-time managing events while also trying to code and live stream and vlog and et cetera, et cetera,
It's a
et cetera.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, workflow. This is what the show is all about. So tell us a little bit more about, like, what are the tools you use and how has your ways of working evolved over the last, I guess, year as you made this transition?
Yeah. So I think my expectation going into like being a full-time content creator was like, this is going to be completely different from being a software engineer. Because in a lot of ways it is, especially from an outside-in perspective. And even having done content creation as a side thing, I was like, it's going to be super different. But what I've found is that it's like, in terms of workflow, organization, productivity stuff, it's actually not very different. Both software engineering and content creation require a lot of moving parts and lots of timelines and lots of project planning. And so like when I was a software engineer, it was like whatever team I was on was using some sort of project management tool, whether that be Jira or Asana or GitHub or whatever. And there was like, and then we also use like Scrum and Agile and Waterfall, which are, you know, very common ways of managing products or projects in software engineering. And so when I kind of became when I quit my job and became a full-time content creator, I was like, I do have a lot of things to do. How the heck do I manage all of this? How do I organize it?
Must have been overwhelming initially.
It was. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I mean, it was also like paired with the fact that like, it was this feeling of I have no idea what I'm doing, really. Like, no, this isn't like a job that there wasn't a job description or like requirements, or like I don't have a manager who's like, you should be doing these things. It was just like, whatever I say goes, and who knows if I'm doing the right thing. So, I mean, not only did I not know what I was doing, but I was also like, okay, well, I have to make something, and then I have to like do the thing. And I kind of just naturally fell into the project planning tools and methods that I had used for software engineering. So
That's cool.
Obviously this also took a lot of iteration as well, but right now it's really just like I have week sprints where I have like a to-do list of things. I have deadlines for videos or other things like Code with Friends things or Instagram posts or whatever that might be. And then I basically work backwards and like come up with all the tasks, and then I assign myself to these tasks. I estimate how long they're gonna take, and then I kind of just take it day by day, because when I do look at the big picture of everything, just like coding projects, it's like, this is so massive. How the heck in the world am I gonna get this done? But breaking it up into small pieces, like videos is really, there's a writing / like scripting / outlining section, there's a filming section, and there's an editing section. And then there's a couple of things along the way if there's like sponsorships and whatnot too. But I mean, I think breaking it up into those things and then figuring out day by day what am I supposed to be doing has been really helpful. So tools wise, I've been using a lot of Dropbox Paper for documenting things, because I use Dropbox Paper at Patreon. I loved it. Right now I'm using ClickUp for project management stuff, just because it gives me the flexibility and gives me a really good high level overview of all the things that I have in my bucket. And allows me to like move tasks around. I also use Trello for some things that don't need like the beefy feature set that ClickUp has, especially when I'm working on things with other people. So like Code with Friends is done on Dropbox Paper and Trello. And then I also still have like my trusty notebook that I write with pen and paper. Because I like using a mix of digital and analog tools. So
it's interesting to me, like you talk about how it's quite similar to software development. But the thing I always hear, and I think I said to this you just as you were making the jump, I was like, you're shifting into this place of entrepreneurship. And one of the things I realized, having been an entrepreneur for a while, is, and I saw a great tweet about this from Jason Lincoln. It goes into a little bit of a dark place, but the gist of it is sort of like, after 2 years as an entrepreneur, your brain starts to change. And one of the ways I think it starts to change, he talks about compartmentalization, but one of the ways I think it starts to change is around your workflow. You start to get to this place where you're focusing on the highest leverage, lowest effort things, because everything has so much uncertainty. I've been really impressed, even just as we've turned on this stream, as I've turned on some tools like OBS, and we were talking a little bit about the tools you're using. Discord's another great one, but how seamless they actually make this whole thing. It's not invasive so much. You can just go live to the whole world instantaneously. Unpack a little bit about that and what that experience looks like, because obviously you're streaming, but you're coding. You know, people are watching you. Are you live coding, or are you working through personal projects? I'd love to hear a little bit more of just the streaming side of things.
Yeah, so on my stream, I do the Muko's Cafe from Monday through Thursday. I use Streamlabs OBS to actually stream things. I have a whole audio setup that you can kind of see here. I use Nightbot for moderation and song requests and also commands. And then I still use a lot of Twitch's tools too, because they have a really nice dashboard for being able to manage reward requests and whatnot. But Monday through Thursdays, I'm usually editing videos, because that's very time intensive.
And that's from like your vlogs and sort of that kind of content?
Exactly. Yeah. All of my content that I put on YouTube, I'm editing that. So I don't usually show my screen or anything like that. But yeah, I think the Pomodoro timer, like I mentioned, has been really good at being able to kind of give us like focus time versus social time. Because when I first started streaming, I was like, chat is continuing to go, and I don't know how to like talk and also work and talk.
I noticed that. I noticed you're like, it's sort of like one of these where you're trying to focus on solving that hard problem, but yeah, it's like impossible. And like, I'm really bad at multitasking in that way. It's honestly really just a threading problem, that if you switch threads too much, nothing actually makes progress, right? And so really the Pomodoro timer has been really good at helping me, and also chat, I think, focus, to know when it's time to focus and know when it's time to stream. Or know when it's time to like socialize and stuff. And then on Fridays, we have our coding stream. So that's when I live code. I share my screen. I code on my MacBook because I usually do iOS apps. So I stream that also through everything. Coding like Swift, or how are you?
Yeah, Swift. Recently, I've been working on a new app just for fun using Swift UI, which is a new UI framework by Apple. And it's been good because it's like a good chance for me to learn new things. I have dedicated coding time every week, just to like keep my brain moving in that way, and then also kind of share my journey along the way. So I also stream that too. I think a lot of the people in the chat can probably attest to just how frustrated I can get, as one does when you're coding.
How do you do that when you're live streaming? I just gotta take a walk. I'm out. I'll be back in a few minutes. Is that sort of the program? Because I know as a programmer, sometimes you just gotta walk away, right?
Yeah. Well, so I think honestly, the fact that I can socialize with people on the chat has been good, because it does like divide my focus. Also, we listen to music, and so sometimes I'll just like queue up some really good bops, and I'll just be like, we're just gonna listen to music for a little bit, okay? Because I need to like rest my mind. Yeah. Or push through even. So yeah.
Is there any backseat coding that happens when you're live on stream?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, all the time.
What does that look like? Is it helpful?
I mean, it can be helpful, because I do get stuck on stuff like everybody, right? And I show everything that I do. I show every Stack Overflow query, every Google search. And there are people who come in and provide advice. And there are some days where I super welcome it. And there's other days where I'm just like, don't you dare backseat code, because I don't want that. But generally, I don't really, I try to have like a no backseat coding kind of thing, because the point of it is not to get from A to B. The point of it is to just be together and code together, and like really share each other's story kind of stuff. But I have some great mods who help me with that as well in the chat, in case someone's being a little bit more aggressive than we'd like. But yeah, it's a fun time.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think we just the other day you were having to balance that time as your compute. I was seeing all the advice that everyone was giving you to try to figure out how to speed up your computer.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting, because it's like, it's text-based communication at the end, right? Like, I don't know who a lot of these people are. I don't know what they sound like. I don't know what their face looks like. I don't even know where they're from in the world. So it's interesting, because like the chat itself has to almost have its own culture that everybody can converge to, because at the end of the day, everyone communicates in a very different way, especially in text-based format. And so I think now that we have a pretty good like quota of people who can kind of give an example of what that culture is like, it's been a lot easier. And so it's very obvious when someone comes in and they're not kind of speaking the same language as us. But I mean, I have a code of conduct. I think like generally like the best way we capture it is just like, we're all about the chill vibes here, everybody. If you're not chill, like you're gonna get a timeout. And yeah, it's fascinating, especially because a lot of online tech communities can be kind of hostile. They can be pretty toxic. And so it's made me think a lot about like, how do you create a positive, constructive, wholesome, chill, kind community online, which I think I've been very lucky to like have been able to mold this in this way because of many factors, but it's like a really tricky thing to do. And I've been more kind of in tune to like different conversations around that as well.
I think it's one of the things you've nailed it as far as what you're bringing to the community is helping people to get over that imposter syndrome. I remember when I was self-taught learning from open source, there wasn't even GitHub. You go on IRC and you're just getting random people from around the world hiding behind fake handles like EpicBot and they'll say anything. But as soon as GitHub came around and now people start associating the real faces, you can start to see these people that you look up to actually struggling in the open, right? It really creates this culture, and we talked about this quite a bit with many different people. It's just this learning in the open model that I think is so powerful. You've done a great job. It's a great job to keep it focused on that, because there's just so many people who need it. I mean, for the next 40 million, we've talked about this so many times, the next 40 million software developers, right? Technology isn't getting necessarily easier, so they need to have that place to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's great that like, I remember when we first like connected and you and I, Kyle, were just like, we like believe in a lot of the same things of like how technology is supposed to move forward and stuff. And I think it's really reassuring to hear leaders like you talk about this stuff openly, because like a lot of the times you have CEOs who don't talk about this kind of stuff, or who are okay with how things are because that's how they grew up in things. But like really a lot of things do have to change in order for those software developers to come into the industry, make meaningful change, and create good technology, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
sort of at the core of kind of what Tristan and I were throwing around is how do we find more people, kind of like what you're doing, but more people who sort of have that. I don't know if it's sort of a, you know, there's lots of people out there, but how do you rally those people around more and create more of those opportunities? I've been such a big proponent or excited about things like coding boot camps, and now we're sort of in a weird period around coding boot camps, and I think the next wave is people learning online from these sort of content creation, more individualized kind of content themes where you might learn from a few different people like you would through YouTube, or learning from your sort of your cafe hangouts, but I think there's still an interesting thing that boot camps led us to understand is that there isn't sort of this like massive barrier to entry to learn software development. That's the thing that I identified with, because I grew up not thinking about education in school and learning. I was just like, hey, here's this thing about the internet. How can I consume as much information as I can? Never turned out to be an amazing programmer, but figured out how to build a bit of a career around it. And I think that's what's so great about programming is people who move into the knowledge economy and learn how to create, whether it's content or software or just create anything online. I think it's hugely valuable, and as they would say, like a rising tide, right? So raise all those boats. I think it's the more you can find like-minded. Is there communities that you participate in beyond just your own, other creators that you look to and sort of get together with on some of these events and some of these? I know you've done lots of collaborations in the past.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's like every month I feel like there's like a new tech content creator on YouTube or Instagram that I find out about who are doing such incredible work. Yeah, I think every month I'm just like looking at like who's new, who's doing a new thing, who's like coming at it from a completely different place that like that we'd never heard from before, for instance. And so yeah, definitely connecting with a lot of those folks, especially for me being in kind of like a tech and lifestyle kind of category. I'm definitely more in tune to those folks, but even just like content creators in terms of people who are making new courses in software development and coding, like there's new people all the time. And so I definitely try to plug into those communities as much as possible. And it's a little bit like, because there isn't like a central place for this, it's a lot of just like snooping around and sending DMs and being like, yo, I like your stuff, do you like my stuff, like let's hang out. So yeah, it's very, I think right now, organic, which is very cool. I think that's kind of where like you can find all the great people, because they just like start coming out of the woodwork, and hopefully the algorithm on whatever platform pushes them forward and stuff. But yeah, I think more and more we'll see like evolutions really of what I'm doing into something even better too, which I'm really excited to see. And yeah, I think it's just gonna keep going, which is great.
Yeah, the future's remote.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think, and just to echo Kyle's point, your positive, this developer positive culture that you've created is really impressive. And so you've brought Code with Friends on Discord. We're building a community on Slack. Do you have some opinions on this Slack versus Discord, as well as it pertains to like kind of building that kind of positive culture, and how you bring, how does the platform affect the vibe, the chill vibes?
Yeah, the chill vibes. That's a good question. Honestly, so the first time that I wanted to create a community outside of YouTube, I had also made a Slack channel as well. This was like my first year of like being on content creation, but it honestly kind of tanked. Mostly I think because there wasn't really any structure to it. There wasn't really any like Slack is a work tool. That's what a lot of people see it as. So I think the people that came onto my Slack channel at least were just like, I don't really know what to say. It ended up being this like people throwing questions they would ask on Stack Overflow into chats and no one responding to them. And so it didn't really work. For me, Discord has been good. And I think I've heard this a lot from other content creators as well. Just Discord being, it's a much more social place. Like it enables a lot more social interaction. The ability to have like voice chats and like create and easily talk to people through voice is really nice. Being able to connect it with different platforms like Twitch and YouTube and bring over emotes and stuff is even that kind of stuff is really compelling. And I think the fact that like people are already on Discord to socialize, I guess, has helped. So I think there's kind of something about like the platforms themselves that talk to a lot of this. But I think really it's like in order to create a community, you have to like be the community at first too. And so like I think there are a lot more Slack channels and Discord servers that get created that never see the light of day than what do. I think mostly just because it's just crickets a lot of the time. And so having just like a bare, what is it called? Like a, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like critical mass, I guess, of people who converse in whatever like community, regardless of where that lives, to create that kind of community and to kind of set the standard of like, these are the kinds of things we talk about here. These are the kinds of things that you're not allowed to say here. These are the interactions we like. These are the kinds of people that we would like to have in this community. I think just like, it's really just setting a culture. I think probably you both know just from having a company too, of just like setting the culture first is a really important thing in order to have the culture grow further. So in some ways, I think like that's a really important part of creating those online communities as well. And I think I noticed that too after creating my Twitch channel server and seeing kind of like random people come in and not knowing who they are, but then realizing that they align in a lot of ways to what I believe in the world, to how they see development, and being like, oh, these aren't just randos. These are people who like, you know, believe in me, believe in like the same future. And that's really where I felt like, okay, this is a thing and this is going to be good. And now it is. We have like, we have like many thousands of people on Discord now, I think. I forget the number. It grows all the time. But yeah.
I can definitely see that. I really like how you position that, where Slack's kind of for work, Discord's kind of for social. Discord kind of came into the gaming thing where voice is really synonymous, and therefore as a result of voice being so easy to use in Discord, I find the people I hang out with on Discord, sometimes I build stronger bonds with them faster, even though I don't know them, have never met them. You know, I might have stronger relationships in some of those categories than I might even in my work categories, because we're all heads down working and it's just text-based. I think that's really interesting, and I think it goes to the point around culture, because culture is very hard in a company, in a community, in anything. You know, there's books upon books written about this, but I think at the core, it's like being able to have those deeper conversations with people so that you can know that you're aligning around something. That's where I think Discord is really uniquely pulling ahead around the gaming and community aspect oriented section of things, because the way that they've made voice is so seamless. It's almost like, hey, here's a bunch of open rooms in the party that you can just walk into, and you might initially kind of be like, whoa, who's in here? But, you know, listen for a minute and then add something to the conversation.
Totally. It's actually fascinating too, because now that I think about it, like there are some things about Discord that I wish was more like Slack, like the ability to have threaded messages and stuff like that, and just have a little bit more organization sometimes. But I almost think that that's what makes Discord so compelling. The fact that it's like you come into Discord and you literally just feel like you've just entered a party. Like it's not like you entered, like sometimes it feels like when you go on Slack, you've entered like a wiki of conversations that have happened at a company. And so it's a little bit more structured. It's a little bit more formal sometimes, because it's easy to search things, because everything's very organized, versus on Discord, you're just like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But in the general chat, they're talking about cereal. Okay. Like we'll talk about that now. Like,
have you ever built apps on either platform? Do you have any experience? Like, what are your thoughts around the app ecosystem and how those are used in Discord versus how those are used in Slack? Because that's, you know, something we're obviously very interested in, and our vision is like enabling workflows wherever. You know, Slack is where we started, but Discord could be very much somewhere where the ops platform was available. maybe to gaming devs or whoever, communities, whatever. We've evaluated these different channels, but we haven't spent much time looking at how applications are actually used within that culture of community in Discord.
Totally. Yeah. I personally haven't made bots on either platform. And maybe it's because I'm more on Discord now than Slack. But I feel like creating, like, the general feeling that I get about creating bots on Discord is that there's more enthusiasm, or there's more of a passion to create bots on Discord. Because to me, like, I think Slack bots feel very, like, they are very productivity focused. They're very work focused. But on Discord, like, every community is so different that like, we've joked about like bots that we could probably make together on Discord before that really would only ever serve our community. But it is a way to like get your feet wet into creating bots and coding and stuff. And I think there's a lot of servers out there that have actually done this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a very interesting place that in some ways it feels like what the App Store used to be, like the iOS App Store used to be in like 2008, 2009, when it was just like...
That's where I was going next with this, because you obviously have spent a lot of time in the App Store. I mean, these early marketplaces around these chat experiences, I don't know if does Discord have sort of like a marketplace or an App Store now? I mean, Slack does, but it's still very early days.
I think there might be. I want to say there is a place at least that recommends like, here are just common bot integrations. But I think it's a little bit more like Wild Westy, I think, than Slack.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What were some of the Discord bot ideas that you've been doing?
Yeah.
They sound like, you know, super niche and kind of fun.
They're super niche. So the most recent one that we talked about was, so on Twitch, I have subscribers on Twitch through the Twitch platform. And so I have a subscribers only channel on my Discord server. And the thing that we do on our subscriber chat is we create pyramids of emojis together. And so someone will start off with one emoji, and then someone will make two, and then three. And so it creates these like pyramids, right? And recently we've been going ham on them, and they get really big. And every time we finish without any interruption, we're always very proud of ourselves. We're like, wow, we did that, fam. Like, that was awesome. And so someone was like, wouldn't it be cool if we like counted, we had like a counter for the pyramids so that we can like keep track of like whether this is the best pyramid or not. And it's just like super niche. Like, this is really kind of like an inside joke between like anyone who's in the channel, really. But like, people think about that where they're just like, yeah, we should make a bot so we know if we've like done the best so far, kind of stuff. I see Elisha's already trying to start on the chat.
Yeah, there we go. This is the fun stuff, right? I mean, one of the things that we've realized is the process of building bots, at least for Slack, and I imagine it's somewhat similar in Discord, but I'd have to go educate myself. It's actually really time consuming, and therefore it's hard to do it for these kind of just fun ideas that are maybe not like driving a higher ROI from like a productivity standpoint or something. And Slack kind of has that challenge, and we spent a lot of time talking to the Slack platform team about, hey, here's how you can make it easier. And a lot of reasons people use our product is a little bit easier to build for Slack, right? Same thing sounds like for Discord, except for the emphasis is just in Discord, these are the kinds of things that are just fun. I saw a bot that I was using in somebody's Discord around gaming where you invite the bot to voice chat, and then the bot plays music, party music for you. And anybody can kind of like party DJ it off of YouTube from the general channel, skip songs, add songs to the playlist. That's the kind of stuff where it's like you could never make a business case for building that for a company, but to go build it for the benefits of the community, the culture, the wins, and the social side of it, all day long. I'd spend 10 hours hacking on that any day.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, those kinds of like innovations make me genuinely really excited about technology, because I think there is a side of the tech industry that is very much about like year-over-year growth and like having high ROI, which like I think that's been a really big focus on stuff. But I think as I'm discovering now too, especially as I have like time to kind of explore this other side of coding, where it's like coding can really just be for joy and for delight and for creating cool stuff for your friends and your community. And really, like, I think that is kind of the really special part about technology, that you can create something that other people benefit from in some way, whether that be it helps them do their taxes or it helps count emoji pyramids. Like, you can really do anything. And I think really like the future of tech that I would like to see, and I'm sure we share in this, is just creating tech that really like helps benefit people in whatever way.
Yeah.
And I think allowing places that where people can experiment and have fun with it is where those good ideas are going to come out of, and create like products that everybody loves. I think already some of the products that we love using are ones that people were just like, I just want to make it, and I did, and it was for fun, and now I guess a lot of people use it. I guess like those things I think are really, really cool. So I'm excited to see more of that.
Yeah. I think the part that I really buy into as an extension of that is I just think, as I look at the last 20 years teaching myself a little bit of software, like I've said many times, I don't think it's ever been more complicated to build software than right now. Like when I started, it was like PHP and FileZilla, and like I'm good to go, right? Maybe a domain name, and somebody had to tell me what DNS was, like, but you're good at that point. You're running it all on one server. Now you've got clusters and cloud and APIs and microservices, and it just gets so overwhelming. And so like the future that I hope for is that eventually software development, at least portions of software development, there's always going to be specialized aspects, but for at least this broader generalized community, there's areas where you can build these things without so much of a time investment, so much of a, an endearing effort to get to that just joy. And so therefore there's more space to create things that are just for fun and drive your passion, because if you're excited, you're curious, and you're continuously creating things that you're interested in, and maybe hell, the first 20 are going to flop, nobody's going to care, but the 21st one, maybe someone's going to be like, that's cool, you're going to get excited, and then you're going to push into these bigger things. But I think a lot of times, to your point, the Silicon Valley approach, that the high-tech mindset of like, yeah, we only hire people with 10 years experience in Swift, and you're like, it's only been around for 4 or 5 years or whatever, right? Yeah. You're like, okay, it makes it a huge barrier to entry for people who want to get started, and kind of kills that excitement right out of the gate. Where if I didn't have that, if I didn't have the dopamine hit from like being like, oh cool, it ran, and I didn't have that like early on in my career, I never would have put them the last. I would have went and probably would have joined the army or something, like who knows, but I don't even think we have an army in Canada. Anyway, point being, I wouldn't be doing software development the way I have been, because it would have been just too long of a journey to get to that sort of gratification that really is what invigorates you, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, software engineering, like many things in this world, is like a craft. And so like when it comes to crafting stuff, like it does help to have the really, like hardcore professional platforms and services that allow you to get off the ground. But you also have to have people who are willing to like step into it and experiment a little bit too. Like ever since I've kind of like quit my job and I'm like, I want to like make stuff, like that's the thing that I really want to do. I've like started woodworking a lot, and I'm just like, woodworking is also very similar to software engineering.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, you could make a house, like you want to make Facebook, but you could also just make like a little box. And the way to do that is to go to a place called Home Depot, where everything is super easy to get. You watch like videos on YouTube, because there's people who teach that to you, and the barrier of entry is super duper low to get into that. And if you want to dive deeper and you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper, then you start going to lumber yards, and you start like having a community of other woodworkers, and you learn about different joints. And I think it's just, there's a lot of parallels to draw in software engineering with other crafts. And I think because we're not as old as like carpentering, we're not as old as like other crafts out there, I think a lot of these other things are starting to get built out. And I like the direction that we're already going towards, of like making things easier for people, because the point of it is to, in the end, create something. It's not to spend hours and hours and hours and hours on Stack Overflow and like
just getting
wonder
started.
if you've chosen the right. Yeah, exactly. It's really just like, how do you create things, like, and how do you make it easy to create things, I think is it's a very exciting future for me to think about in that way.
Yeah, we've been toying around with these ideas of just starter kits, where it's sort of synonymous with the workflow in some regards, where how could we use our registry to push out sort of just a basic starter kit for this, that, or that. And the goal is to make it as easy as possible for someone to just go through a workflow that helps them achieve the thing they want. Almost like what you saw in early days of Node.js with things like Streams Adventures, which is sort of like a guided experience, which is walking you through how to learn. I kind of like katas or coding dojos. I mean, there's a lot of these tutorial-based things out there, but there's less stuff where I think it bridges into more of the next step of like, oh, and here's how you could also then continue to leverage this as part of your side project or even a legitimate thing if you wanted to. They're almost like these starter kits that are just in a box. And what I'd love to see more is these sort of Home Depot like boxes that you can start with, where you're gluing it together, mixed with some content creation for someone like Mayuko here who I can learn from, but then know that, hey, these are the tools that I'm actually going to be using on the job. I think as an industry, bridging that gap into those tools is really, really important, because there often are the barrier to entry for most people, whether it's at the resume and CV level or once they actually just get on the job. I remember starting, I think it was like my, I don't know, third programming job, something like that. And I showed up and they were like, here you go. And I was like, what's this? They're like, Java. I'm like, I told you I know JavaScript. And they're like, same thing. And then they left.
Oh, no.
I was like,
Oh, no.
And I remember just being, I remember going to the CTO who hired me and I'm like, hey man, I know I've only been here for 3 hours, but I'm going to give you my resignation now. I went across the street and went to work with somebody else who, yeah. And so it's like, it's not, obviously this was 10 years ago, and I'm hoping most tech companies have a better onboarding experience than that and pay a little bit more attention than that. But I mean, that's to me that dramatic experience that I remember feeling like such an imposter. And I'm like, I'm never going to do this again. So doing that research on the job, knowing that the tools are going to enable me to come in there and learn more from others, but there's a starting point where I can be effective, at least for me, that's super, super critical. And I think it's something that's underappreciated, and why we chose to think about DevOps and workflows from our perspective of our business, because if we can lower that sort of layer and give you more tools that are just easier for you to use, where you can go, hey, now I have some time, I'm showing proficiency, I have some time to learn those things, whether it's on the job or just in your, as your progression of your career. I think that's really impactful over time. Hopefully, I mean, that's
Totally.
our hope, right?
Yeah, especially in an area where like DevOps, where I feel like traditionally a lot of people have really shied away from. As soon as they hear DevOps, they're just like, oh gosh.
Sounds complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we pitched this whole idea. I've done a couple talks about it. We talk about lean DevOps because what we're trying to do a lot with ours is show the friendly side of what DevOps can be. And I think when you think about DevOps on one hand, the way we think about it is it's this crazy back-end thing where you're managing servers. It feels more like a sysadmin in the old days, where your command line, nobody's talking to you, hoodies up, you got goggles on, and you're just going, right? Whereas I think about DevOps is like, how do I make your developer experience as easy as possible so that you can be successful? And it's not your job to come and learn the tools. It's my job as the DevOps person to make the tools fit your experience and create leverage for you along the way. And if I'm not getting feedback from you as the user of the tools that I'm delivering to you, then I'm really not working effectively. And if I'm also not embodying the philosophy, the best practice, the culture, as you talked about with Discord, into those tools that help you understand that what we care about here is mean time to recovery and deployment frequency. We're a little less sensitive about lead time for change. These kinds of measurements, I think that's something that can be really effective at helping, especially new people who join a new company, align on the culture side, because it's always those two equations, right? It's like, hey, here's the tools, gotta learn them. Here's how we actually work and kind of the expectations. And the more we can embody that into the developer experience by just lowering the overhead from like, God love them, but Kubernetes, for example, it's a pretty big learning curve. Things like that, I think the better we do for the next generation of software developers who are going to come up.
100%. Yeah, I love that. I'm excited for that.
Woo! Let's do it.
Well, here as we come up, we're a little bit over the hour, and we're wrapping up. Mayuko, any last words? People shout outs, dev tools shout outs, and where is the best place to find you online?
Yeah, well, definitely want to shout out all the people in the chat. Definitely Kyle and Tristan are people to follow and know, so definitely follow the show for those of you who are coming from my side. Thanks so much for having me. This has been incredible. I feel like it's opened up my mind to different ways of thinking about technology. It's always a pleasure to talk to you both. On the internet, you can find me at Hello Mayuko, Mayuko, on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere else, Instagram, wherever you want to find me.
It's a good one.
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's, we love the positive culture that you've created in community. And that's it. That's all we have for today. For all you out there on Twitch, We always stream live on YouTube, and all of the repository of all the last 20 episodes that we've been doing since COVID summer are all there on YouTube. So jump over there and click subscribe if you'd like to keep up with our weekly Op Show episodes. With that, Kyle, it was a good one.
Thank you so much, Mayuko. This is great. As always, you are infectious with your energy and positivity.
Thank you.